vSphere Replication Deployment. In this module, I'm going to deploy the vSphere Replication appliance at our main data center, and then I'll go ahead and deploy a second appliance at our DR site. Following that, I'll just make the connection between our main data center and our DR site. And then I'll demonstrate the isolation of our replication traffic on our ESXi host, and then the configuration of that from the appliance end. Okay, so I have a couple slides here. Let's go through this first, and before we get to the vSphere web client and start our demonstration. The vSphere Replication Appliance OVF is deployed. It's deployed with an OVF through the vSphere web client. Once the appliance is deployed and power on, we would be presented with the Virtual Appliance Management Interface, or the VAMI, where we can finalize the configuration for the appliance. So once that is finished, we wouldn't be logging in back directly to the appliance. The first deployed vSphere replication appliance would serve as the vSphere replication management server. So this would contain the necessary components to manage authentication and also to maintain the mappings between the source VM and the replicas at the target site. Generally, the vSphere Replication Management Server is the only appliance that would be needed in our infrastructure to be deployed. Okay, to be up and running with vSphere Replication. So basically, we'll just deploy one appliance at our main site, and that should give us the ability to start replicating our VMs. What we can do is deploy additional vSphere Replication appliances if we have a large site, or let's say if we're trying to replicate to multiple targets, that's when you would want to use a multiple replication server. It should be noted that these additional appliances does not contain the management component. These additional replication appliances, it wouldn't contain the management component and would only be used to receive the replicated backups. As I mentioned previously too, we can have a maximum of 10 appliances per vCenter server. So in this case, if we have one management server, or in this case, sorry, we can deploy one management server and up to 9 replication appliances. As I mentioned too, we would set up a separate network for our replication traffic, but once we deploy the appliances at the main and the DR site and connect them up together, then we'll get back into the setting up of a separate replication network. We can also use network I/O control to control the bandwidth utilization for this. In this case here, we wouldn't be doing that. And also, I have listed here the connection for our appliance. So we'll just use the IP address that we deploy the appliance at with port 5480. Okay, so let me pull up my vSphere web client and we'll get into the deployment of our first appliance. But before that, I'll bring up my VMware Workstation console and just go through what the infrastructure would look like. Okay, so over here I have my Windows 2012 server here. So this would basically serve as our DNS server in this infrastructure. Then I have my vCenter server appliance deployed. So we'll assume this one is at the main site. Okay, And then I have ESXi 5. This would be associated with the vCenter server here at the main site. And then separately from this infrastructure, I have my DR site here. So I have my DR vCenter server. Okay. And then across from that, I have ESXi 6. This would be associated with this DR vCenter server. Okay, so we'll go ahead now and deploy the appliance at both the main site and also at the DR site, and then set up the communication between those two. So let me pull up my vSphere web client now. So across here, I have my vCenter server at my main site, and then I have my DR vCenter server here. So I've logged into both here. If you come under hosts, we have ESXi 5 listed here. Actually, I should delete this. Okay, I'm just going to leave that for now, but this is ESXi 5 here, and then over from ESXi 5, we have ESXi 6 here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come across to my main site and just deploy onto ESXi 5. I'll just go ahead and deploy a new appliance. Okay, I'll just go ahead and browse for this. And just hit on next here. Okay, so we have some detail here with the size and the size on the disk too that this would utilize. If we were to do thin provision, it will utilize 1.7 gigs. Thick provision this, it will deploy with 2 disks equivalent to 18 gigs. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and hit on next here. Just take notice here too, this is deploying with vSphere Replication Appliance 6.1. Just hit on next here. I'll accept this. Then hit on next. Want this to deploy to data center 1. I'll leave the default name there and just hit on next. So here I can choose the CPU if I need 4 vCPU or 2. So I have enough capacity in my infrastructure for CPU resources. So I'll leave this to the default of 4 vCPU. So I can change this to 2 vCPU too. So I'll just leave this to the default. Hit on next. So what I'll do is just go ahead and deploy this on a local disk. So ideally you'd want the appliance to be on a high available or a high availability storage. You'd want to deploy it there. So in this case, I'll just do it on the local disk. And here I'll change the type to thin provision disk and just hit on next. Okay, so I'll leave the default network configuration here. You could change this and specify your IP allocation differently, but I'll just leave this at the default. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and give the appliance a password here. So this would be the root password to log in directly to our appliance that I'm setting currently. So let me just do that. And here I have the option of, well, it's mandatory to specify the NTP server. So I'm setting this manually. This would point to my NTP. In this case, it's 152. So my DNS box there, the Windows server, that is also running an NTP server. So I'll just point it there, just hit on next. Okay, so I'll just hit on next now, and I'll select power on after deployment, and here I have a little summary of what it's going to do. Okay, so 10 provision this. It's my NTP server, 4 vCPU, sorry. Size on this 1.7, and this is the download size. I'll just go ahead and hit on finish now. So we'll see this deploying at the bottom here. This will just take like a few minutes. Okay, that did not go well. That just failed. Let me just make it a check on my infrastructure in the back end here. Okay, let's just try this really fast again. Accept this, select next, data center, next for vCPU, leave the default, change this to 10, next, leave this to the default, set password, then set my NTP here, and just hit on next. Hit on next, power on. Hopefully we have some better results now. I just had to make a change in the back end of my infrastructure here that I'm hosting this on. Okay, so once this is deployed, I'll go ahead and do the same thing over to my at my DR site too. Okay, so this is started now. Yes, as I was mentioning, so once this is completed, we'll go ahead and configure this, then I'll do the same thing at my DR site, and then we'll set up the communication with it too. Once that is finished, then I'll just demonstrate setting up a dedicated replication network for our replication traffic before wrapping up this module. Okay, so this is finished now. We should see in our list here we have our vSphere replication appliance that would be covered up. So if I just click on this, it will open in a new tab. So this generally take quite a few minutes. So I'll just pause the recording for a little bit here, and when we start back here, we should be at the screen that provides the IP address for login. So we'll just use that and then log in directly to the appliance and just do some basic configuration in there before moving over to our DR site. So once this is finished, we'll continue from here. Okay, so welcome back. This took like about 4 or 5 minutes. So the deployment is finished here. Let me just connect to the IP address here. So to manage this VM, browse to that IP address with port 5480. So let's do that. We are at 223. So you could go ahead and set up your DNS records for this too, but it's not mandatory. So in this case here, I'll just skip over that. Okay, so let me just proceed. So this is where we would enter the password that we would have set once we were deploying this appliance. So in this case here, username is root, and I'll just set up that password here. Then I'll just go ahead and hit on login here. So we have the getting started page here, and this is pointing us to our configuration page and to our security page if we want to change the appliance credentials. Okay, so let's just go through these really fast. We have some information here on the network. All right. There's the status. We have the IP address here. I wouldn't recommend you change any settings in here. If you'd like, you just redeploy this appliance if you need to make any change in here. Um, Across here, if we needed to update this appliance, and then we can check for update here. And then basically, if we need to reboot or shut down the appliance, we'll do that from the system tab. The time zone here too, we can set a time zone in here. So let's go back to the VR tab, and then over here we could change the password, current password, and enter a new password there. And then also we have a support tab here to generate our support bundle. So we'll be working mainly in here for configuration. So the first thing I would want to do is enter my SSO credentials here. Okay, for my vCenter server. So that is good there. We'll come back to the IP address for incoming stored traffic. We'll come back to this in a little bit. Okay. Um, and if you notice the the VRM service is stopped at the bottom. So once I have this entered in here, I would want to save and restart the service, and then this should come up here. Okay, so let's do that first. And then I'll just accept and confirm this SSL certificate here. Once this is saved, we should see this service come up here. Actually, it's not. Let me just redo that. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I just had to make some configuration changes in the backend. I actually had to configure my ESXi host properly for NTP. So once I got that sorted out, this was this configuration was saved, and then the service restarted successfully. So let me now that we have this appliance up, let me go over to the DR site, and we're going to do the same thing here. So let me just right click here and deploy OVF template. So we have a little summary here. I'll just click on next, accept the license agreement. This is our DR data center. So this is on ESXi 6 now and not 5. So I'll leave the default for 4 vCPU. So virtual disk, I want to do 10 provision, and I only have one data store here. So go ahead and hit the next. Once this is validated, I'll just specify my IP configuration. In this case, for this appliance, I want to specify or I want to set a particular IP address, so I'm going to do that here. So IP allocation, I want to put manual here. So for now, it only allows us to add our DNS server and our gateway here. Once we continue here, then I'll get to add the management IP address. So in this case, it's 152. Set my gateway. So this is for management. As you'll see in a little bit, I'll deploy a second network just for replication traffic. So let me just double check on this. So here, I'll enter my root password, and then I'll specify my NTP server here. So here is where we get to enter the management IP address. So for this appliance, I want the 224. So this looks good here. Next, next, power on, finish. This would take a couple minutes whilst this is deploying and powering on. Let's go over here and take a look at our vSphere replication add-in here. So this is looking for the vSphere appliance, the replication appliance. So once it finds this, that's the one we were working on just now. Once it finds, okay, so here we have it, the status for it is okay. Let's take back a look, see what's going on with this one here. Okay, so it's still deploying. So once these two are deployed, the other appliance, the DR site, then we'll come over and manage this. Okay, so the target site, we'll go ahead and add the target site here. So I can connect to another replication appliance there, or another vCenter server, sorry. And then also I can configure this for vCloud, so I can configure that here too. Okay, so I'll have my one replication server listed here. So if we had multiple servers, we'll see that showing up here, and we can deploy multiple servers from here too. Okay, so we have the option here of deploying a new replication server, and here we'll get to register a VM with the replication server. So let's take a look, see what's the status of this. Okay, so this would take a few minutes more to come up. Let me go back to replication. For us to separate the management and the replication traffic too, we'll need to power the appliance off to configure that. Also, we'll need to modify the VM kernel networking on the ESXi host. But once this one is up, once this VM comes up, we'll get to that point. Okay, so this appliance is deployed at the 224 address. Let's just get over there really fast. Here we have it. So let me just connect over here. So configuration. Accept. I should now see the vSphere replication add-in on the second vCenter server at my DR site. So once this is completed here, we would go across here. Okay, so let me take a look at this. Okay, sorry about that. I'm having some issues here. I'm kind of maxing out my resources on that I'm running this lab on. So what I'll try to do is just go through the steps rather than configuring the DR site. So we'll go through the steps of configuring it, but not the actual configuration at the DR. And since this is really maxing my hardware out here, and I'm having some issues to get this to come up. So as I mentioned, we have the one appliance deployed at the main site here. So what we'll want to do next is deploy a second appliance at the DR site, and then once we come into manage here to target site, all I need to do here is add a target over to my so here we have it here. Here we would add the target site, so I'll just add in the address of the platform services controller here. So basically authenticated to my vCenter server at the other end, and then my administrator at vSphere.local and my password. And once I log in, my vCenter server at the other end should just populate here. And then what I'll want to do next is go over to my DR site, come under my vSphere application, and just check that the two sites have authenticated. If not, we'll just need to authenticate with our credentials across the two sites. So that way we would have our two sites set up to communicate with each other. What I want to demonstrate next is the addition of a separate network for replication traffic. So first, to configure that, I'll need to power off the vSphere replication appliance. So I have the second appliance off for my DR site. So I still have my vCenter server up for the DR site, so I'll just log into that. Okay, so I just took this off. Let me just double check on this. Okay, so what you'll want to do to configure your replication traffic separately is power off your vSphere replication appliance at both ends. Okay, so I have the one at the DR site off already here, so I'll just work with this and just add an additional VNIC to this. Let me just power this off. Thought I had this off, so let me just get this off, and then once it's off, I'll add a second adapter to it and then come back into the configuration. Okay, so I'll just want to edit this and add a second VNIC to this. The second VNIC would be for replication traffic. So let me go to network, add, and I just need this to be connected. I'll just hit the OK. So once I power up this VM now, which I'm not going to do because I'm kind of maxing my resources here. So once I power this up, the IP address should be listed here. That the new VNIC would have pulled. What I need to do also is modify the networking for this particular host. So let me get across there. And then under networking for this host, I'll just need to add networking. So what I'm doing here is adding a VM kernel adapter. So I'll leave this at the default vSwitch 0. Let's just call this replication. Okay, and here You'd want to enable this for replication. At the DR site, you would want to enable vSphere replication NFC traffic. And at the source site, we'd want to enable vSphere replication traffic on the VM kernel port there. So let me just go ahead. Next here, I just want to leave this to automatic. I just hit finish. So coming over to my main site here. So I'd want to add the VNIC on this virtual machine too, the vSphere replication appliance. So after I have that configured, I'll just need to add another VM kernel adapter here too. So let me just go ahead and add the second one here. And then in this case, I'd want to set this to vSphere replication traffic. I'll leave this to the default there and just hit on finish. So at my two ends here, I have a 227. This is at my DR site, and at my main site here, I have a 228. So what I'll want to do next is go into the configuration for the appliance. Under configuration, and then for IP address for incoming storage traffic, I need to add the DR site here because this is the appliance for my main site, and then do the opposite at the other appliance. So at this one here, I'll plug in the IP address of 227. So this is my DR site replication 227. Okay, so I'd want to go over to the DR site appliance now if that was up. Let me just enter the password. Okay, so if that was up, I'll want to go over there now and add in 228 at my DR site replication appliance. And once that is configured, our replication traffic would start moving over this VM kernel, replication VM kernel port that I've created here.